There yet? Yes, we are.
Yep.
Right now, in this moment in time, our nation is fighting for democracy and freedom. That's all good, but there's an ingredient that I strongly feel is missing. Well, it would be hard to run a nation without empathy. And so, empathy is the great root in the stew of gumbo. It's kind of like eating gumbo without the okra or some of the main ingredients. So let us talk about empathy today. Empathy is understanding and sharing people's feelings, emotional awareness, recognizing emotions of others, whether they're verbally or nonverbal, because there are lots of people that cannot read emotions or interpret emotions. And so that would be the nonverbal aspect. There is a perspective that empathy also shows. In order to have empathy, you have to have the ability to see another person's perspective, imagining and putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You have emotional contagion, which is shared empathy, a person that can trigger your emotions and you both can go back and forth on emotions because you're kind of in sync. It's kind of like a person coughs and then, or sneezes, and then you sneeze also. But that's my example of it. It may not be the best example, but hey, good enough. You have empathetic concerns, genuine concern for the well being of others, which lead to compassion, sympathy, and desires to help others. Now, if you got somebody that's a former president or predecessor, they're not going to have empathy. They don't have empathy. And the bottom line is that's not something that can happen overnight. Uh, Empathy, when you when you can show empathy, you have the concern and the care for others. And in that care and concern for others, you wouldn't be creating chaos or turning people against each other or threatening people's lives. That makes it kind of like that's not empathy. Hello there. Okay. Then you have cognitive empathy. That's understanding and intellectually grasping, and that's taking in a person's emotions and perspective. You have to comprehend and interpret emotions and thoughts of others. Now, let me stop and explain something right there. A lot of times, when somebody is showing emotions, somebody say, "Well, I didn't get that. That goes over my head." And when it does go over your head, then you just put it in a concrete form and you just basically point it out to them. No, Mudasi Doug, I don't speak Turkish. All right? Then you have emotional empathy, and you're feeling and emotions of another person. And that's basically, like I said, you're kind of in touch with that person, and you're saying, okay, something bad happened to you today. Then let me hear this. Let me hear what your situation is. And once they tell you, like I say, you can put yourself in their place and understand what they're feeling and try to support them. Empathetic accuracy, perceiving and interpreting emotions of others, subtle cues, uh, whether they're in verbal or nonverbal communication. And once again, a lot of times when we have empathy, um, or a person without empathy, they cannot interpret, what that person feels. But if you have a person that's running the country and they lack empathy, then they're not going to be able to develop those friends and relationships or reach across the waters. Communication is very important, and you can't have somebody out there that's not communicating with people or giving hateful speeches or threatening people. that's that's not empathy. That's just what it is. It's basically threatening people. So um, after that, you have an emotional empathetic response. You're you're alleviating and addressing the emotions of others through support, through comfort, through reassurance, to help demonstrate and care for others. A lot of times people just say, I don't care, you know, but you may not can read that person or understand that person. You need to sit down and try to communicate. And we haven't been seeing that kind of communication lately in our Senate, in our Congress, even in the Supreme Court. So there's a great deal of lack of empathy. But like I said, if we're fighting for our democracy, if we're fighting for freedom, then we have to uh, put ourselves in other people's shoes. Now, some people wear expensive shoes. We may not never get to that pair of shoes, but it's the same thing if you go to work. The first thing that you want your boss to feel is that, hey, if you were in my situation, maybe you would give me a raise, or maybe you would slack up, or maybe you'll take some of the pressure off of me and get me some extra help. You know, but a lot of times people don't relate or show empathy because basically they're zombies. They're basically zombies, and that's what you have now. We're looking at that in our nation. We're looking at people that's saying, I just don't care. I don't care what happens. And you can't walk around and not care about other people's feelings. Everything in this life is not about it's not about you. In order for me to reach across the aisles, I have to show some kind of concern, you know. And I get it, you know. A lot of people just feel like, well, in my life, I don't really, I really don't care what happens to anybody else. You know, what's what happened happens. But that's a terrible way to be, because there's many people across the world that if we took a trip right now, we would have to understand their language. We would need an interpreter. We would have to understand what they're going through. They have to understand what we're going through, and that's what helps uh, run a country, or is good leadership. That would be good leadership. So empathy versus sympathy. Empathy involves understanding and sharing the feelings of others. Sympathy involves feelings, compassion, or pity for someone without necessarily understanding their emotions. Empathy is a deeper emotion which builds support and social relationships and promotes understanding. And that's not what our nation has been looking at lately. And we haven't been reaching across the aisle. Um, when somebody says something, we want to go after them. We want to disrespect them, and we're seeing that with leaders, people like I said, people in Congress, people in the Senate. We're seeing that constantly, and not only are we seeing it, everybody across the world is seeing it. And the point is, who would want to be uh, collaborate with us with looking at everything that we're going through right now? I don't think a lot of people would want to come to the United States. There are other wars going on, and then you look at our leadership. When you look at our leadership, we have a person in office that understands empathy. You have somebody in office that can relate to people, that has open doors of communication, you know, is willing to walk across the aisle, is willing to collaborate, communicate, but that's not happening, uh, what we're seeing on the other side in the coming election. But that's one of the things that I wanted to really talk about today, uh, was empathy, because, like I say, it is one of the main ingredients that a person should have if we want a democratic nation, if we want our freedom. And I like thinking about freedom because uh, it could be a democratic nation and still there might be times that you might not feel as free. So um, think about it. Think about tonight when you go home, or if you encounter somebody, have you displayed empathy? You can question um, your empathy, or is it difficult for you to understand what your emotions are? A lot of times, people basically walk across the aisle and they may not understand another person's feelings. But what you can do is try to sit down and not attack them verbally or disrespect them, like we've seen happen in Congress. Um, so, uh, so you're saying Democrats have been playing folks for 100 years? Well, I haven't lived up to 100 years, but I'll tell you this: whether they're playing a person or not, it seems to be on the side of there is a better relationship, a better communication. Um, I would want to talk to somebody that could talk back to me, that could communicate with me, that everything is not about me, that I wouldn't say, with you coming on the live stream, I don't care about what you feel or what you say, you know. Um, but the bottom line is that's what happens when you do go on live stream. You do get people with different perspectives, and that's a part of empathy. Everybody's not going to be on the same page at the same time, and so that's what you have. But you have to be able to communicate and talk to people. Even at the age that I am, I have to uh, be able to talk and communicate with the younger generation. Sometimes I struggle with people in my age group because I might listen to certain music, you know. But I'm saying that I'm opening the door and I can't shut people out because I'm at the age that I am. I can't, just say, well, and you hear it all the time from elders, from seniors, I don't want to hear what you got to say back in the day. Well, I'm not back in the day. I'm in this moment in time right now. And in this moment in time right now, our country is under like under a big firewall, and we gotta uh, open the doors of communication, and we're gonna have to learn how to really talk to people, and we have to have more integrity. No, I'm not that person that got into a beef with. I don't know who that person is. Oh, you talking about the radio announcer? No, I think Cadmium was in Atlanta. Uh, that's where they were at when that happened. I'm not that person. I'm a new G, a new YouTuber, uh, and I'm enjoying it. I'm rather having fun. And coming out here, I'm just basically giving my life experiences and saying to younger people that that's something that's not really going over well, because when they're looking when they're looking at that spectrum, they're not caring, or they're only caring about themselves, which that's a great concern. They're supposed to care, but we also supposed to think about other people. Everything cannot be in the concern for ourselves, because nothing will get achieved, you know. Um, and my bottom line is I'm a learner and I like learning. And want I want to learn from younger people. I want to move forward. I don't want to be like on a job, and a lot of times this happens on the job. Uh, a lot of elders are not as empathetic because they feel threatened. They feel threatened by AI. They feel threatened by computers. You know, they're not willing to communicate or talk to younger people. Uh, there's that order of saying that, uh, younger people don't know as much as them, but everybody in this era and time is learning at a much faster pace. And you have to be able to open the doors, like I say, of communication. Also, you have to be able to adapt to change. And that's right there. A lot of people aren't willing to adapt to change. A lot of people is afraid to change. And it, it it happens with being empathetic. A lot of people saying, you know what, that's your crap over there. I I don't care about that. I don't have time for that, you know. But what I'm saying today is think about it. Think about the last person you communicated with, uh, and if they didn't understand you, and if you didn't understand them, then maybe there was a miscommunication. Maybe there was something that you couldn't understand their emotions, you couldn't understand their feelings. But in the world that we're in now, with democracy and freedom online, there's no possible way that this country can operate without empathy. You have to run a country, and like I said, that's the lines of communication, doors of communication, because if I left the United States right now, I would have to get an interpreter. I would have to get somebody that is willing to talk to me, um, willing to explain things to me, to let me know that, okay, if you do this in my country, you might be jailed. If I don't have that interpreter, it's going to be bad. And we need a lot of interpretations in this, how you doing, in this moment in time, because that is not what is really happening. You know, we're seeing fights break out. We're seeing uh, just a mass amount of chaos. We're seeing people constantly, you give them the information and they need the facts before them. The facts really do matter. The facts, if you have the facts there, you put the later facts out, and if you don't understand it, then what happens? You come in and say, hey, I want to sit down. I want to talk to you. Maybe we got off track. You know, uh, the bottom line is that um, I want you to understand me. I want to understand you. You know, if there's uh, our communication or emotions uh, got a little bit too high, a little bit too low, then we should be able to work it out. Whether it's nonverbal, nonverbal is the point where you got to really explain it concretely, and verbally, you know, uh, well, basically vice versa. You have to tell a person, uh, this is something that I really want to do. This is what I really want to go across. And um, we need we need a country. We need a leader. We have a leader right now. And whether it's Democrat and or Republican, whoever gets in, that person needs to have on the top of their list, on the very top of their list, empathy has to be in the pot, in the stew of the roux, because that leaves us as a heartless country, a cruel country, a country with a dictator. That's what it leaves us with. And I don't think you want to wake up in the morning and find out that our world is upside down because you got a leader that don't care. You got a leader that only cares about themselves. That you have a leader that basically put out information and it's not the facts. The fact of the matter is democracy, freedom, empathy goes in the pot with that. And that's what this country needs to have. And if you go to work tomorrow, if you're in a relationship, um, those things you're gonna have to be a human being. Just saying I'm human. Understand that I want to be understood, but it goes beyond myself. It goes beyond me communicating with you and basically saying whether it's 100 years, 200 years, it could be 500 years. 500 years from now, we're still gonna need empathy in the conversation. We're still gonna have to interpret a person's feelings. Though you can't operate without empathy. You cannot run a nation without empathy. We're not an independent nation. We're an interdependent nation. And if we go somewhere else and we try to collaborate or form communications, we have to, that's what we have to do. Break ourselves down and say, hey, I understand what you're saying. You know, uh, we want to support, we want to help, we want to show you that we care. We care about your well being. You can't run into a person that doesn't care about your well being and saying, well, that's on you. That's your problem. You can't do that. You can't be running around talking about you want to jail everybody, lock everybody up. You know, you you gotta hear a person out. You gotta figure out, like I said, if you're on the wrong page at the wrong time, then we need to get in the same book. And when we get in the same book, we need to learn how to talk to each other and treat each other with dignity and respect and have integrity. Because a country that's ran off of no empathy is a country that has no humanity. You're not going to be humane. You're going to be like a zombie. That's what you're going to end up being like. You're going to end up like a zombie. And as a matter of fact, there are people that may lack empathy. Narcissists lack empathy. On the other side of the spectrum, you have people under the uh, the umbrella of what is that? Autism, Asperger. They may have, and those are neurological. We don't hook those up the same way because empathy on one side of the narcissist is a person that is in denial. Empathy on the other side are people with a neurological condition that may struggle to show emotions. But that's brain based, brain function, and hey, it's different. They don't put them in. It's two distinct different uh, disorders. But the one on the narcissistic side is a little bit more. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. So think about it. Um, I'm glad that you came today, and I want you to think about your go to the mirror and just think about the last person you talked to. And if that person, if you treated them with dignity, respect, and if you was empathetic to their cause, then good. If there was a moment in your head that you might not been able to show empathy, or just ask them, just explain it to you. And once again, we're fighting a battle of democracy. We're fighting for freedom, but most of all, the roux in the stew. Once again, we need empathy in the pot. And think about the leader that has showed empathy, and think about the leader that has shows chaos. Think about it. Think about the person who cares. Think about the person that want to set the world on fire. That is not empathy. That is not empathy. Empathy is crossing the lines of communication, opening the doors, and saying, come on in, I want you in here, and I want to understand you. Not just understand me, not just, say, is the buck stop here, or I'm the head person in charge, or it's my way or the highway. That is not showing any empathy whatsoever. That's only showing concern for one person, and that's only the person that's wearing those shoes, because that person is not going to get out his shoes, his Nikes, or whatever he's wearing, and go over there and check on the other person. You know, even insurance companies say, hey, we'll call you up and give you a wellness check. You're not going to get a wellness check if you lack empathy. You're not going to get any of that. And so, once again, I'll say I thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. And if it's 500 years from now, whether it's red or blue, green or black, that leader has to have empathy. That leader, if they don't show empathy, then our nation is in trouble. Our nation will be a heartless nation. We'll have an empathy void. And we will definitely have cruel leadership. So once again, I thank you for coming, and I'm out.